And he's having a problem logging in.
Okay, now it's working. Welcome. This is the adult education class, Temple Bethel Riverside, and I'm very excited to share this space with you. I'm really happy to welcome our members and later on friends who join us on the YouTube page. I open so many so many windows that I don't find you now. I don't know what happened with this computer, so many windows, but I will find you. Can you see me? Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Okay,
We can see you.
I can see you. Let me just rediscover where are you. I trying to discover which one is the correct page.
See all.
Let me see. I need to discover where are you. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, here you are. I see there are 12 participants in this page, but I don't see the 12. And where is Sherry? I don't see Sherry. She was with us. Where is Sherry? I don't know.
Eddie's having a hard time logging on too, so maybe there's a.
Let me see.
There's Sherry.
Okay, here we are, more people. Okay, everybody's in now. I'm sorry we had with some techniques problem, but I'm happy to see you all. I'm happy to see you all. Welcome. Great. Now it's everybody on board. Okay. Okay. Good evening. We are going to talk in this meeting about Judaism and human rights. And when you listen Judaism and human rights, what is the first things that you think about? Where we can find resources about human rights in Judaism? Which is our first resource?
Bible.
Exactly. Yes, the Torah, Bible, the Holy Bible, the 5 books of Moses. I just trying to explain because perhaps there are people who are not Jews who follow us later on YouTube. But the first resource when we are talking about human rights, we don't need to break our mind. We need to go to the Torah and we need to see, and we can start directly in the book of Breshit. When we open the book of Bereshit, it's a universal story. And on chapter 1 of Genesis, verse 27, it's written, "And God created man on his own image. On the image of God created he him, male and female created he them." Okay, and here you have a very important information. It's not written here that God created the Jews on his own image. He was created the man and the woman. What it means that God created the man and the woman, that all of us, our image is related to God. And this is something that it's universal. It's not just Jews. We are talking about the entire humanity. If you are going against human being, you are going against God. If God creates all the creatures, and if you kill a man, a woman, you are going against this God who created the entire humanity. This is one of the things. Other things that we need to remember, and it's very, 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 very important to remember, is what is written in the Talmud. Okay, and this first things that I spoke, we call this B'Tselem Elokim. B'Tselem Elokim, it's a way to recognize that we were created in the image of God. But other important thing that we need to remember, it's also the Talmud. When we are talking about the Talmud, we are talking about dignity, and we are talking about the equivalence of one man who kill a man. It's like it's killing the entire humanity. This is something that we find in the Mishnah in Sanhedrin 4:5. Whoever destroys a single life is considered to have destroyed an entire world. Whoever saves a single life is considered to have saved the entire world. And this is important when we are talking about human rights, but this is something that it's coming from the Jewish research. Now we are talking about the Mishnah, Masechet Sanhedrin 4, Mishnah 5. And this is very important when we are talking about, and it's clear when we are talking at the beginning of the humanity, if you was killing one, it's like you was killing the entire humanity. When Cain killed Abel, we in that time we know just 4 people in the entire world. Okay, and you can understand, and we can understand in our own pain when a loved one is killing. It's like the entire humanity. We lose a great part of the humanity. And another things that we need to consider when we are talking about human rights, we are talking about dignity, and this is something that we find when we are talking B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. We talk about equality and the value of life when we are talking about one person, entire humanity, and we need to talk about justice. It's impossible to talk about human rights if we are not talking about justice. And when we open the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 20, it's a famous verse that it's written, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof. Justice, justice shall you portion. And this is very, very important because it's impossible to think about human rights without justice. Yes, the Talmud also in Pirkei Avot, remember us about the pyramid, that you need to have justice, you need to have truth, and you need to have shalom, you need to have peace, justice, and of course, truth are the pillars of the human rights. It's impossible to understand human rights if you don't understand how important it was written in the Talmud. But we need also to remember when I spoke about research and the Torah, it's an important research. We started to study recently the second book of the Torah, and we remember the time of the desert. And in the time of the desert, when we see how the people of Israel grew up and they became a people, because before this they were just a group of tribes, but they became a people when they received a law, when they received the Torah, exactly the Torah that we are talking about. And in this Torah, the law have a special message to the people to take care of the widow and to take care for the stranger and to take care of course, of all who are vulnerable in our society. And they also include the orphans. And this group, widow, orphan, stranger, and also poor people, had a special recommendation in the Jewish law to receive them, to take care of them, to give food to them, and to give to them the same condition that you can give to a rich people. But we know that in fact, not always rules or commitments are working in the same way in our society. But it was written, and it's part of our Torah, and it's what part of our message, strong message, the protection of the poor, widow, orphan, and strangers. Many times when we organize a tzedakah campaign, we are trying to focus in one of these groups. Sometimes we donate to the poor people, sometimes we donate to the strangers who are between us. The ger, ger is stranger, ger it's in Hebrew, and the first part of my name it's Gershon. Gershon, it's exactly ger, stranger. And we remember the entire time that we were stranger in the land of Egypt. And this is something we will have in a couple of months, the holiday of Pesach. And one of the things that it's mandatory to remember that we were slaves in the land of Egypt, we were stranger, and we need to remember the story that was not so friendly with the stranger, with the slaves. Workers also, yes, when we are talking about human rights, we need to remember that the worker must be paid in the same day. You can't wait till the other day to pay to the worker who is working for hours. Yes, and this is written in the Torah. And this is part of the human rights, to give dignity to the person, to give dignity to my neighbor, to respect my neighbor in the way he think, in the way he believe, in the way that he is, by his color, sexuality, the way that the person believe, also in religion. Yes, we are talking about religious freedom. We are talking about freedom of speech. And this is part of the human rights, but this is part of Judaism. This is the way that we understand Judaism. This is the way that we understand our religion. There are tensions, of course. There are tensions in the entire time, in the different generations. But we need to remember, and we need to study the laws, and we need to practice the laws. Okay, this is the first thing that just as a general introduction. Let me return to the page and let me recover. I would like to ask you, because it's an interaction, I don't like monologue, just to speak alone. If we are talking about human rights, do you have important Jewish figures around the world that you can remember their names? Can you remember American Jews who were fighting for human rights? Any
in
name?
the current time, Mark Elias.
Okay. Can you talk a little more about him?
Yeah, Mark Elias has been very active as a lawyer running the Elias Group law firm and protecting the voting rights of Americans.
Okay, thank you. Any other names that you can remember? Institutions, if you don't remember a name, Jewish institutions who
There
fight.
were there were two Jewish boys who fought, who demonstrated down with the civil rights movement, down with Martin Luther King in the South. One begins with G. I'm not sure of the names, but anyway, those were two Jewish. They were killed down south during the '60s with the civil rights movement.
Okay,
Rabbi Posner was with the civil rights movement
yes,
also.
yes, yes. We are going immediately to talk about these people, but also it's important to remember that we had Jewish institutions who were fighting for human rights. One of them that it's very, very important and famous, it's the Anti-Defamation League that was created in 1913.
Mhm.
Okay, the Anti-Defamation League, it's still very strong in America. And I'm thinking that it's one of the most important Jewish institutions, not just in America, in the entire world. And also the World Jewish Congress, nowadays, it's fighting for human rights and it's fighting for Jewish rights. But it's not the fight just for us, Jews. We are fighting for universal rights. There is something that it's happening nowadays, and you can see the reaction of many rabbis and the reaction of many Jews around the world, and especially the reaction of many Israeli citizens, is the situation in Iran. Okay, the people is reacted against the Ayatollahs, and they are fighting. And the information that we received that there are more than 10,000 people who were killed in the last weeks. I don't say month, weeks.
Wow.
Yes, but there are many Jews and Jewish institutions who are speaking loud about the human rights in Iran, but not many other peoples or leaders are talking about the human rights in Iran. And this
What
is
about
important.
B'nai
Yes.
B'rith?
Sorry?
I said, what about B'nai B'rith?
B'nai B'rith, yes, 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 B'nai B'rith. B'nai B'rith also came specific in the time of the Holocaust.
Mhm.
Yes, it was a branch of the Jewish institutions to reallocate survivors and to help these survivors in the different countries. And this is the reason that we have B'nai B'rith all around the world. It's not just
Yeah.
in America. And the same happened with the Anti-Defamation League. You have branches in many places, and you have also different institutions who are fighting for human rights. The Wiesenthal Center, for example, also it's an institution who was fighting for human rights. But let's organize a little bit all this information. And I would like first to introduce this important institution, the Anti-Defamation League. Perhaps not everybody knows about the history of this institution. Let's watch together a video. I would like also to talk about American rabbis who were very important in South America fighting for the human rights during the dictatorship period in the 70s in Brazil and in Argentina. And it's not coincidence that they were American rabbis, because it was so strong they experience with human rights here in America, then when they move to South America, they continue to be involved with human rights. Okay, let's start with to share a couple of videos. The first will be about the Bnei Brit. Okay. Okay, can you see the screen? Yes.
Yes.
Let me just open here. Okay.
This nation is a work in progress. We are a promise and a dream. We are a nation built upon the principles of equality and justice, but still striving to realize our ideals, to fulfill the promise, to perfect the dream. That is why ADL was founded 100 years ago, and why ADL still exists today. In each generation since its founding, the Anti-Defamation League has been a force for change, a champion of our nation's values, and a shield against hate and extremism. (1913). The Jewish community of the United States faced rampant anti-Semitism and overt discrimination. Books, plays, and above all newspapers depicted Jews with crude stereotypes. Against this backdrop of bigotry and intolerance, an attorney from Chicago named Sigmund Livingston put forth a bold idea: to create an organization with the mission to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all. Starting with a $200 budget and 2 desks in Livingston's law office, the Anti-Defamation League was founded with the clear understanding that the fight against one form of prejudice could not succeed without battling prejudice in all forms. During this same time, an event in Georgia makes the need for the organization painfully clear. Leo Frank, a Jewish businessman who moves to Atlanta to manage his family's pencil factory, is convicted of the rape and murder of a 13-year-old female employee, following a trial which was defined by anti-Semitism. When the governor reduces his death sentence to life in prison, a mob, including some influential community leaders, drags Frank from his prison cell and lynches him. It is not until decades later, at ADL's urging, that the state of Georgia issues Frank a posthumous pardon. For 100 years, the Anti-Defamation League has been a force for change, a champion of our nation's values, and a shield against hate and extremism. ADL has come a long way, from 2 desks in a Chicago law firm to an internationally recognized leader in the fight against prejudice, bigotry, and hate, with 28 offices across the country and a team of professionals and lay leaders dedicated to stopping the defamation of the Jewish people and securing justice and fair treatment to all. ADL begins its 2nd century knowing that there is much more work to be done. Imagine a world without hate. ADL will not rest until the dream becomes a reality.
Imagine a world without hate.
Okay, we are talking about the Anti-Defamation League, and it's important to remember just last Monday we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in America. And Martin Luther King Jr. Was fight for the black rights, but he was not alone. And it was a rabbi who called Abraham Yeshua Heschel, who was born in Europe, and he came to America before World War II. And then he knows in his skin about anti-Semitism in Europe, and he embraced different organizations of human rights, and he became a close friend from Martin Luther King. When our Melamedet Caroli spoke about the people who fight with Martin Luther King, I would like to honor the holy memory of Abraham Yeshua Heschel, and you are going to understand why, for example, some American rabbis fight for human rights in South America, and the reason is because they were Abraham Yeshua Heschel students. They were their students, and then received the strong message from the master, from the rabbi, and then when they became themselves rabbis and went to South America, they continued the mission of the rabbi, of their master. Okay, and we are going. Why I saying this? Because we are going to match one rabbi with the other to see that we are just follow the same way. Okay, let me once again share the screen, and let's know more about Rabbi Abraham Yeshua Heschel. And I would like perhaps during the year to invite Susanna Heschel, Rabbi Heschel's daughter. She lives in Boston, if I'm not wrong. And she's a very nice person. Let's know more about Rabbi Abraham Yeshua Heschel, who fight for human rights.
Coming up, he marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and was a longtime activist for civil rights and against war. Remembering rabbi, theologian, and mystic Abraham Joshua Heschel. This weekend of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, religious services are planned around the country to remember him and his legacy. Some of them will be in synagogues that are honoring both King and the late Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of King's many courageous supporters. Heschel is widely considered to be one of the greatest American religious figures of the last century, a rabbi, theologian, social activist, and mystic, admired by Christians as well as Jews. He would have been 101 years old this month. Our segment was produced by Steve Brand, a New York filmmaker who is completing a documentary on Heschel called Praying with My Legs. Brand gathered powerful recollections from those who had known him and who wish his prophetic voice were still sounding.
Pick 'em up and lay 'em down right.
It was his participation in the civil rights movement that first made Heschel widely known. In a famous photo of the Selma March in 1965, its leaders wearing garlands, Heschel was the white man with the prophet's beard, two to the right of Dr. King. That was the occasion on which Heschel said he felt he was praying with his legs.
God is either the father of all men or of no men. And the idea of judging a person in terms of black or brown or white is an eye disease.
Heschel also publicly and passionately opposed the war in Vietnam.
How can I pray when I have on my conscience the awareness that I am co-responsible for the death of innocent people in Vietnam? In a free society, some are guilty, all are responsible.
The war in Vietnam for Heschel was an ultimate act of dehumanization, to no longer even see that there was an enemy on the other side who was a human being. And Heschel was convinced that if I act with a disregard for the humanity of my fellow human being, I am really ultimately attacking God.
Heschel's daughter Susanna teaches Jewish studies at Dartmouth College.
My father was sleepless over Vietnam. He would be up late at night, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, couldn't sleep. He was so upset. It was on his mind all the time.
Heschel's experience of the Holocaust was one reason for his social activism. He had seen close up what racism and apathy can do, and how violence toward human beings often begins with the abuse of language.
Hitler, he said, did not come to power with tanks and machine guns. Hitler came to power with words.
Heschel was raised in Warsaw and did graduate study in Berlin. Just 6 weeks before World War II, he was able to escape from Europe. Heschel's late wife, Sylvia, remembered.
There were sisters of his who were killed. That was a very painful thing for him, very. His mother died of a heart attack as soon as the Nazi came to the door. She just fell to the ground. It was awful.
But Heschel never blamed God.
He said God didn't do it, man did it.
Heschel's biographer is Edward Kaplan.
There are moments in which he talks about overcoming despair and overcoming gloom. But the response to the catastrophe is not to focus on the catastrophe, but to focus on human possibilities.
When you ask Heschel, where was God during the Holocaust, his answer was always, of course, where was man? But if you read Heschel carefully, I would say God cares. God weeps with man at his sufferings. God participates in human suffering. And therefore, God was there in the Holocaust.
Whenever I get a little down or depressed, I go get one of his books and I read the prophet Isaiah and what he has to say about Isaiah. Because Isaiah was written at a time of the desolation of Israel. And yet it's the loftiest vision of dreams for humankind. It's people's ability to have faith in the midst of persecution and destruction.
At the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, Heschel was a professor of social ethics and mysticism, two powerful strands of Jewish thought. From the prophets, he learned to speak out about the world's evils. From his ancestors, who were Hasidic Jews, known for their ecstatic spirituality, he learned to celebrate life.
I say that this world in itself is so fantastically mysterious, so challengingly marvelous, that not to realize that there is more than I see, then there's endlessly more than I can express or even conceive in just being underdeveloped intellectually.
One of Heschel's main attempts in getting to you, in a sense, is his own sense of radical amazement. See, to be aware of so many different things. Did you notice the trees? Well, Heschel was in love with trees. You're walking in Riverside Park. Don't forget the trees, you know. Don't forget the river. You have to react.
Heschel described the spiritual power he felt as the ineffable.
Oh, ineffable. He loved that word. That which is inexplainable, but you know is there. It points to something beyond that which we pray to, meaning God.
Heschel's biographer notes his use of dramatic language to try to reach others' hearts, not just their minds. He read a Heschel description of a mystical experience.
A moment comes like a thunderbolt, in which a flash of the undisclosed rends our dark apathy asunder. The ineffable has shuddered itself into the soul. It has entered our consciousness like a ray of light passing into a lake. I can't believe that someone could write a passage like this without having experienced it himself.
Heschel's deep spirituality drew many Christians to him, among them the Catholic priest and anti-Vietnam War activist Daniel Berrigan, who became a friend.
I was seeing someone who was immersed totally in his own religious tradition and was at the same time charmingly ecumenical, and open to others. I began to understand that the two went together, that if you were a person of deep faith, you were open to others. And you didn't draw lines or boundaries or say, we're inside the circle and others are out. He was one of the chosen who believed that everyone was chosen, and that the very fact of existing in the world meant you were chosen.
Heschel fought all anti-Semitism. He campaigned for the rights of Jews in the Soviet Union, and at the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, he lobbied hard against church teachings that demeaned Jews or anticipated their conversion.
I came out with a very strong rebuke. I'd say I'd rather go to Auschwitz and give up my religion. And that my being Jewish is so sacred to me that I am ready to die for it.
Over his lifetime, Heschel published 18 books and more than 100 essays. He was driven to show the relevance of Jewish scripture to modern life. In the Sabbath, he saw time as something to be made holy. In Man is Not Alone and other volumes, he said God expects and depends on human beings to carry out his will.
So Heschel can say to the world, the challenge today is nihilism. He says the enemy we all face is nihilism. The world is going to hell. The sense of meaninglessness is pervasive. And we have to do something about this.
His friends say Heschel did a lot about it by what he taught, and even more by how he lived.
We are called upon to be an image of God. You see, God is absent, invisible, and the task of a human being is to represent the divine, to be a reminder of the presence of God.
1 year after he said that, Heschel died on December 23, 1972. He was just 65 years old. There's more on our website, pbs.org, about Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King, and there's also a link to a site about the forthcoming documentary, Praying with My Legs.
This is really a very nice material about an American rabbi. In fact, he started to work at the HUC, Hebrew Union College, and then later on he moved to the JTS, Jewish Theological Seminary. One of Rabbi Heschel's students was the founder of the Seminario Rabínico Latinoamericano, the rabbinic seminary in Buenos Aires. And we need to understand that before Rabbi Marshall T. Meyer, Rabbi Heschel's students, we didn't have any modern Jewish seminary, and we didn't have in Argentina any voice who represent the Jewish with the human rights. And this is really very important. I'm going to show you just a short video from Rabbi Marshall Meyer. My idea in another class is to introduce you better about Marshall Meyer and the American influence in Latin America, the American Jewish influence in South America. And I will talk more about Rabbi Marshall Meyer, but I would like to take specifically about human rights, because this is the issue of our meeting today. And during the dictatorship in Argentina, we are talking about a number, yes, people who were killed and who disappeared, around 30,000. 30,000. And for this 30,000, an important number of Jews. and they disappear not for being Jews. They disappear because they were anarchists, or they belong to the left or different parties of the left, and they disappeared. They didn't disappear; they were killed. Okay, let's explain in these words. And it was a group of mothers who used to went to the different ministries in Argentina to ask about their kids. And this group became the group of mothers of Mayo Square, the main square in front of the government house in Buenos Aires, called Mayo Square, May Square, in Plaza de Mayo, May Square. And this group became very famous because this group of mothers, once a week, they were walking around the square asking for their kids, asking for their children, because they didn't have any information. And this American rabbi, who was Rabbi Heschel's student, came to Argentina. He found the rabbinical seminary, and he found an important community in a Jewish neighborhood called Bethel, like our community. And he started to participate, and he started to join the mothers of the May Square, and he started to march, to walk with them. And this is what I said before. He was Heschel student. He saw his rabbi, his master, walking with Martin Luther King, and he started to walk with the mothers who were looking for their kids. And he also invite other rabbinical students to follow him. And these rabbis were my rabbis. And this story I know in first person because I studied in the seminary when they were the last years of Marshall Mayer in Argentina. He went back to New York, and he refound the community Bnei Yeshurun in Manhattan. And when we are talking about human rights, the first things that Rabbi Marshall Mayer did in Manhattan was to fight for the poor people, for the homeless. He opened the synagogue for the homeless, and it was also the 80s that the AIDS was very, very strong, and many people were died by AIDS. And he opened also doors for the LGBT community to be part of Bnei Yeshurun. And Bnei Yeshurun didn't have at least minyan, but in the last time of Rabbi Marshall Mayer, more than 2,000 persons participates as member of this synagogue. And if you have the opportunity to visit New York, I would like to invite you to visit Temple Bnei Yeshurun in the Upper West Side. And today, who are leading the community are students for Rabbi Mayer, Argentinian rabbis who studied in the rabbinical seminary where Marshall Mayer used to teach, and then they are today the leaders of the Bnei Yeshurun in Manhattan. But what I would like to show you now in this video, it's the participation of Marshall Mayer with the mothers of May Square. And you will listen the speech of Rabbi Mayer, and you are going to listen the speech of Rabbi Heschel. We are going to watch just a part.
I have no right to be silent in the face of injustice. I cannot believe to believe in God and remain inactive when God's image is destroyed. According to the Muslim, Christian, and of course Jewish belief, we human beings are made in the image of God. And when humans are denigrated, humiliated, and persecuted, the sanctity of human life is threatened everywhere. And if there is no longer the sanctity of life, of human life, we lose our course in history and become less than human.
Meyer llegó a la Argentina en 1959 para oficiar como segundo rabino en la Congregación Israelita de la República Argentina.
This is the May Square. You can see the pink house in the back. The pink house in the back, this is the, like we have here in Washington, D.C., the White House. In Argentina, in Buenos Aires, you have the pink house, that is the government house. And in the middle of the square, you have the Pyramid of May. And you can see around the pyramid a large group of people walking in a circle. This is the group that called Mothers of Plaza de Mayo, Mothers of May Square. And in this circle, Rabbi Meyer used to walk, and he invited not just student rabbis, he also invited the Jewish community. We need to say that his condition for being American citizen, he was in a better condition than Argentinian rabbis, because he had an American passport and he had some immunity against the dictatorships. Okay, and this is an important information to say. He had an American passport, that it was a strong passport, and the dictatorships respect the American government, and they didn't like to touch an American rabbi who was serving the Argentinian community. But Marshall Meyer was more than a rabbi. He became like an ambassador of Judaism in Argentina. We are going to talk more about Marshall Meyer in another opportunity, but I just wanted to show you this story. Other important story that I heard about him, many of the confidential documents for the dictatorship period, when Marshall Meyer visited the jails, because he had access to the jails to visit the Jewish prisoners, many of the documents that he collected were in a special place in the synagogue. They had a shelter under the bima at Temple Bethel, and all this information of all of these documents were under the bima at Temple Bethel. Yes, this is an information that was shared by me with me for the former rabbi of Temple Bethel. And this is really important to know, that he put on risk his own life to visit these Jewish prisoners, many of them who were killed. He also helped many of these prisoners to leave Argentina, and some of these Jewish prisoners had the opportunity to go to Israel. One of them was the journalist Jacobo Timmerman. if you study the history of the journalist Jacobo Timerman, who was against the dictatorship in Argentina, Jacobo Timerman, through thanks the Marshall Mayer help, arrived to Israel, and many others did the same. It's an Argentinian rabbi who lived here in California, in the region of San Francisco, who was working with Marshall Mayer, and he was fighting for human rights in the same time. His name is Gretz, Rabbi Gretz, and Rabbi Gretz was Argentinian, and Rabbi Mayer was American, and Rabbi Gretz leave Argentina because the dictatorship want to kill him. Okay, and he didn't have the immunity that Marshall Mayer had, and Rabbi Gretz went first to Rio de Janeiro. He became the rabbi of an important community in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and then after Rio de Janeiro he moved to the States. Okay. The rabbi who told me the story about the documents that were under the Bimam is Rabbi Silvina Chemen. Okay, Silvina Chemen. I like to say names because are real stories. Okay, all of them are real stories. But try to imagine to put the document, the enclosed document, under the Bimam, putting in risk their own lives. Okay, and during the dictatorship, I was really very, very young. I was 12 years old in Argentina. But I remember that the Jewish communities had immunity. Nobody can enter inside the Jewish communities. And the Jewish society in that time, especially the young people, were very active, and everybody knows about the dictatorship and the people who disappeared or the people who were killed. And the Jewish community were really very, very active. They created some groups fighting for Jews for human rights, and they went to different parades, and they put in risk their lives. Many of this generation who grew up during the dictatorship in Argentina want to express their opinion in freedom, and they decide to make Aliyah, because it was the unique place that they could express with freedom their ideology. It was impossible to give an opinion, a free opinion in Argentina. It's important to study the story also to compare with our times. Okay, there are many things that you can match in different places of the world that happened in the past, that happen in our days, and you can compare through the history. Let's go back to other video, and I would like to introduce other important rabbi, also an American rabbi. He was one of my mentors in Brazil. He was called Rabbi Henry Sobel, and he was the main rabbi at CIP. CIP, it's Congregación Israelita Paulista, the main reform community in São Paulo, with more than 2,000 families. Try to imagine the size of the community. And Rabbi Sobel did something unique for his time. He came also from America with this mentality of human rights in the time of the dictatorship in Brazil. Yes, it was the dictatorship period in all South America. Remember that you had Pinochet in Chile, and you had Videla in Argentina, and you had also the dictatorship in Brazil. And in that time was in jail a journalist a Jewish journalist, and in a sudden appears in news that he suicide on jail. And he had family, he had wife and kids, and it was really very suspicious that he's going to die through suicide, to kill himself. And Rabbi Sobel did something very strong for that time. Do you know who are the rules for people who suicide in Judaism? Then when they are burial, when it's a burial, where is the place that we suppose to do the burial of a Jewish who suicide?
Is it outside the Jewish portion of the cemetery?
It's not exactly outside because
Okay.
he's part of the Jewish people. Let's say in that way. It's right in some places, Randy. The person, the Jewish who commit suicide, was buried in the other side of the wall of the cemetery. But in this case, in South America, the rule is to do the ceremony inside, but close to the wall, inside, just to indicate that this person is not like the others who had a normal grave. This grave will be in front of the wall. And Rabbi Sobel did something very curious, very, very, very strong. He refused to do the burial in front of the wall, and he did a normal ceremony in the middle of the cemetery. And it was a Jewish way to say to everyone, this man didn't suicide. Okay? And from this time till his last days, Rabbi Sobel became a hero, not just for Jewish people, for the entire Brazilian society. He was like an ambassador of Judaism. He was unbelievable. He came to parades here and there, and he walked, and the entire population in Brazil liked to touch him and to take a photograph with him. He was like a star. An interesting, Rabbi Heschel died with 65 years old, and Rabbi Sobel died with 75 years old, both very young. Rabbi Sobel was sick, and he died here in Florida. But everybody remember him as a hero because he was opposite the dictatorship in Brazil. But instead to say he didn't suicide, it was a way to speak loud, doing a normal ceremony in the middle of the cemetery. And this was Rabbi Henry Sobel. I had with him a very nice relationship. I also was very young. I met him before in Argentina in some visits, and when I moved to Brazil, he supported me in Porto Alegre in my community. And each time he was really mensch because he was a big rabbi, and he invited me to lead a wedding with him in São Paulo. And always when he saw me, he gave me nice space in the ceremonies, in the services. My memories are great memories because it was not the time of the internet, of the email, and we wrote each other letters, and we changed letters. And sometimes I had doubts or questions about Judaism, about Jewish law, and I was written, and he was answered by by letter, and I have that letters still today, and for me are really very important. And he did this with Vladimir Herzog. Let me just show you a short video about Rabbi Henry Sobel. Let me show you quickly something about human rights. You can see here this picture about the last rabbi. Yes, this is the group of mothers of May Square, and let me show you. This is Rabbi Michael Meyer, but what I trying to show you, he was speaking here about human rights. He also was very popular with politicians. But I wanted to show you one picture here, this picture. Movement of Jews for the human rights. This is Buenos Aires. And this is unbelievable, okay? How he involved Jews. Of course, here perhaps was a Jewish woman who disappeared, but this is really very strong to see the Maguen David and the proclaim. And here it's written in Spanish, aparición con vida, movimiento judío por los derechos humanos. Let's find with life these persons that they show, and here are the mothers of May Square. All of them, you can see they have a special things here that was written May of Square, but this is the most important thing, and this was stimulated by a rabbi. Okay, without Marshall Mayer, it's impossible to think about human rights in Argentina. Okay, this is one thing, and let's find now the video of Rabbi Sobel. Till today, Rabbi Sobel, it's really very important. There are some streets that receive his name in São Paulo. I'm thinking that it's not in English.
Photo that was distributed. It was all a farce intended to prove that the death at Doakad had not been due to torture, but rather suicide. The death certificate issued by the authorities immediately after Herzog's death contradicted the facts of that morning. Saturday in the basement of Doiko. Rodolfo, who was wearing a hood, saw someone sitting next
This
to
is Vladimir Herzog that was killed by dictatorship, and they said that he committed suicide.
him. He recognized by the shoes that it could only be Vladimir Herzog, because he had bought these shoes with Rodolfo 3 days earlier. He heard the screams of Vladimir
This is
Herzog
Rabbi Henry Sobel.
being tortured, and he himself was tortured shortly afterward. Two and a half hours later, he called me. He said there was evidence, Marcos de Golpe.
Okay, just to show you about Rabbi Sobel, who to have an idea that we are talking about whom we are talking about, but you need to take care about one detail that also it's very important. why other Brazilian rabbis didn't spoke loud, and the reason is the same. Okay, American passport. Okay, American passport was really very strong, and the dictatorships had a good relationship with American authorities, and they didn't like any problems to take an American rabbis in Brazil, in Brazil lands. This is the reason because why we didn't hear about human rights for other rabbis, because they put in risk their own lives just for being citizens for the same country. But an American passport in that time was important, was strong, and was respected, and nobody can touch an American citizen, and nobody can touch an American rabbi. But he was really very, very popular. Two stories. Let me go back a little bit and talk about Rabbi Heschel's student, Rabbi Marshall Mayer. Marshall Mayer was the unique rabbi in Argentina who was invited by the president of the Republic, Raúl Alfonsín, who became the first president after the dictatorship period, who created a commission to write a book about this dark period in the history in Argentina. I'm sure that the book is in English, and the name of the book is it's Never Again, if you have the opportunity to read. It was created by a commission, and in that commission, the unique Jew who was there was Rabbi Marshall Mayer. And Marshall Mayer he wrote a special chapter about the Jewish prisoners. If everyone in that time, if every prisoner was tortured and suffered, the Jewish prisoners suffered double, just because they were Jews. It's very sad. And I had a very, very strong experience. I was in that time Madrid for the Jewish community in Buenos Aires, and a group of 300 Madridim met Rabbi Marshall Mayer at the Rabbinical Seminary. We met in a big saloon, and everybody was sitting in the floor, and Marshall Mayer, they put a chair in the middle of the saloon, and Rabbi Mayer started to talk to the youth, and I was there. And he asked, please write your hand who wrote the book that I wrote about the dictatorship. And nobody raised his hand. And Marshall Mayer kept silence, and he did something really very strong that I never forgot. He didn't speak, but he started to cry. And he cried a lot. And after he cried, he said, why you are thinking that we spent a lot of time writing this book about this terrible period in our history, and no one of you read the book? How it can be? And he said some word in Spanish, not very funny words. Why, and let me translate what he said. Why do you think that we break our ass to write this book and no one of you read this book? Believe me, I returned home and I went to the library, okay? And in the same night, I read 400 pages. and like me, many others that were participating in that meeting. And this was Rabbi Marshall Meyer. I met his widow in New York City a couple of years ago, and we had a very nice talk. Well, he decided to return to America to live with the last year with his family, friends, and especially to see the grandsons here, and to come and to be with his community Bnei Shurum. But he was an important American Jewish rabbi who fight for human rights in South America, inspired by his teacher, rabbi here in America. You can see how important were these two rabbis in South America fighting for human rights. And why I talking about this? Because both of them were my rabbis too, or they were the rabbis of my rabbis, and they gave me a strong impact in my rabbinate. I can't imagine my rabbinate without embracing human rights or without fighting for freedom of speech or freedom of religion. This is also why I'm so involved with the interfaith, because all of them were very involved with interfaith. Sometimes I would like to speak more loud, but sometimes it's very difficult to speak loud. In all depend the context and on all depend the situation. I can talk in person more about this issue and know in a public class that will be shared later on in YouTube. But I follow what they taught me, and I trying to inspire other generation in the interfaith dialogue, and I trying to invite also to share how important are human rights, not just for Jews, because this is not just something that belongs to Jews. This is something that belongs to the entire humanity. It's a universal value. We saw the Jewish values that are taking us to fight for human rights, but are also values that I consider them universal. Are Jewish values, but we are sharing these values with others. Let me see. Perhaps I have one more video to share with you. Yes, I have a very nice video. One of the rabbis that I didn't know him in person, but I know him through his lectures and books, is Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha. And he also was a rabbi who fight for human rights, and he had an excellent speech in London that I would like to share with you.
I too thank the noble Lord Alton, for initiating this important debate that touches the very core of our humanity, transcending all differences of color, culture, class, or creed, and setting moral limits to the use of power. It took great crises to make people aware of human rights, the wars of religion in the 17th century that led Milton and Locke to formulate the doctrine of the rights of man, proclaimed the next century in the American and French revolutions. And it was sustained reflection on the Holocaust and on the Nazi program to eliminate whole classes of humanity, the physically and mentally handicapped, homosexuals, Roma, Sinti, and Jews, that led to the great 1948 United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was a way of saying that what happened in the Holocaust should never happen again, and that those who died should not have died in vain. And it remains a testament to the human spirit that at that time of Cold War, of tense conflict in the Middle East, the nations of the world were nonetheless able to come together in collective affirmation, whether through religious faith or human reason, of the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. That remains, despite the genocides and the abuses that have happened since, of which we have heard so powerfully today. That remains a signal of hope and a template of aspiration that must continue to protect us against cynicism and despair. My lords, on this vast subject, I wish to make just one point. Rights depend not only on declarations, but also on education. Rights are lost when one group within a society, usually the dominant group, sees another group as a threat to its freedom, its own dominance. Threat becomes fear, fear becomes hate, and hate becomes dehumanization. The Nazis called Jews vermin, lice. The Hutus of Rwanda called the Tutsis inyenzi, cockroaches. And when this happens, when we dehumanize the other, evil follows as night follows day. The only way to stop this is education. My lords, I am deeply concerned at the teaching of hate that exists in some parts of the world and among some groups today. That teaching is poisoning the minds of young children and other vulnerable individuals, condemning them to a future of conflict and hostility from which they themselves will lose, for hate harms the hater no less than the hated, and when I diminish others, I am myself diminished. Article 26 of the Universal Declaration speaks about education. Paragraph 2 states that it should, I quote, promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups. How good it would be if we could find ways of making that a reality and not just a pious hope. Today, as my noble Lord has mentioned, is the first day of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, the anniversary of the time 22 centuries ago when Jews fought and won their right to religious freedom. Shall we not work together, Jews, Christians, Muslims, those of all faiths, to teach the world's children to see God's image in people who are not in my image, whose color is not mine, whose language is not mine, whose faith is not mine, a principle shared, if differently expressed, by secular humanists of all kinds. For human rights begin in the way we teach our children to recognize the humanity of the other and the dignity of difference. The rights of tomorrow are born in the education of today.
I'm thinking that this summarizes many of our thoughts that we were talking during this adult education class, because we started talking about Genesis, talking about Tselem Elohim, the image of God, and Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs conclude, yes, saying the same. Yes, if you need to respect declaration are not enough. We need to educate. And I'm thinking that this is the more important message for human rights. You can speak about human rights. You can organize nice events about human rights. But if you don't teach about human rights, it's a practice like commitment, like mitzvot, and this is the idea. Okay, let's teach the other and let's inspire the others to have a life plenty of commitments, and inside these commitments, we are going to find the human rights. Any comment?
Rabbi, may I say something?
Please, Susie.
I have the name of a humanitarian, and her name is Rabbi Suzanne Singer.
Yes.
No matter Jews, black, white, yellow, she
Excellent
fights
name.
for everything.
Excellent name. Rabbi Susan Singer, if you go to the corner Market Street, you are going to find her fighting for human rights and going and visiting the prison and fighting against injustice. And I like it that you mentioned Rabbi Susan Singer. Great.
Rabbi, I have a question on Rabbi Herschel's biography.
Yes.
A gentleman, I think his last name was Kaplan. I would like to know the name of that biography, that author on Rabbi Herschel.
There are many books about Rabbi Heschel. Most of them in English, of course. I can send you, or you can see. There are many books. Let me see if I have some here.
You had a video on with a gentleman. I think his last
Yes,
name
Kaplan.
is Kaplan.
I think his name was Kaplan, yes.
Kaplan, yes, the editor. But if you put Rabbi Heschel, most of my books are in Spanish or in Portuguese.
I'll Google him and I'll probably come up.
You have, for example, this is the same book written in Portuguese. This is in Spanish. There is a book from Rabbi Meyer in English, if you like. You Are My Witness.
Okay, thank you.
This is for Rabbi Marshall Meyer. The Living Words of Rabbi Marshall Meyer, edited by Jane Isai. You can see them. I will leave this book in my desk. You can see all of them if you are interested. Yes, there are many books about them. And the last book about Martin Luther King and Rabbi Heschel, I received recently during the Pacific Association of Reformed Rabbis, is this book that it's available in our library. If one of them would like to pick this book to read and later on return, okay, I have an extra copy and will be available in my desk.
Thank
Okay,
you.
this is by Dr. Mark Dollinger. He was the main professor in our convention. You see,
very enlightening lecture. Thank you.
Yes, you see that human rights, it's something very important to consider, but not just to consider, to practice and teach. And it's mandatory for us to teach the new generations about human rights. And the question is how? Okay, let's teach about Judaism. And inside Judaism, you are going to find human rights. Everything that it's talking about stranger, and it's talking about widow, and it's talking about poor people, and it's talking about orphans, and it's talking about other people. Okay, you can find this in the Torah. Okay? We need to teach the new generations, and we need to practice. And when we see something that it's injustice, okay, let's go and let's speak loud. Okay, and this is part of our mission. Okay, we are like a thermometer. Yes, when the temperature is very high and the things are not good, Jews must speak loud. And the Jewish people, it's like the thermometer of the humanity. Many times when things happen first to us, later on will happen with others. And if nobody react, will be very late. Any other consideration, reflection?
I don't know if anybody's familiar, but Joseph, I believe it's Joseph R. Levin, along with Morris D., founded the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. And Harel, my late husband, and I have been very, very involved with that and have been members of that, and I still am, and have done great strides in fighting anti-Semitism. In fact, I believe Joseph Levin, I think he passed away in 2021, used to speak at a lot of temples to the women, to the women's groups, etc., and a lot of the other groups concerning the Holocaust. And the reason they formed that Southern Poverty Law Center, which is Gash Patel has actually labeled a terrorist organization because they go after the anti-Semitic organizations against us. And if anyone is familiar with that, you might want to look into that. It's the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. Very, very good organization.
Yes, it is. My son and his family are members. That is a very, very good organization to fight for human rights, actually.
Thank you to remember this, Sabi. Thank you for remember. Okay, my friends, we are going to conclude our meeting. I would like to thank for your presence, and I would like to invite you to attend the service. If you are here in our region, you are very welcome to our sanctuary. If you are not in our region, you are very welcome to be online with us tomorrow.
Thank you very much,
7
Rabbi.
p.m.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you for being there.